Who gave up after 200 years. They now call themselves
Ambassador Symington is a very, very experienced diplomat. Just prepares a visit and also see our facilities and rock lines with us. And we will the good words from doing what is paid to do, to report an event and conduct an interview. He was going to be sentenced to death, and pressure made the Cameroonian authorities to bring him to 10 years. We hope that pressure will be sustained until he is finally
Your Excellency, we feel highly assured that when we were threatened by Shakau, you stood up and gave us assurances. And this, we are most grateful for that. We're also grateful for Sergeant White here to train us, and we're actively just taken to forestall any brutalities.
Good. I hope you all are for the challenges facing your country and your state. Everyone is part of security. Thanks.
Your comment is reassuring to us, or rather your visit is reassuring to us women in Dandal Kura who have been receiving threats from the extremist group Boko Haram. I have few minutes though. I would like to thank you so much for your visit. And I am new, an upcoming journalist. Staying in Dandal Kura has broadened my horizon, and I have been able to contribute my quota to educate young and vulnerable women and children.
Great.
To say no to extremism and radicalism, radical ideology. I speak here on behalf of the entire women of Dandal Kura, who are brave and committed to their work. Thank you.
All the relationships between people and their nation or their state. I think there are sort of two schools of thought. One is, if you get the right structure in place and you get the right leaders at the top, everything will be fine. Then there's another school, which says that justice is less, and governance and democracy and freedom and fairness are less machines than they are crops, than they are organic, living things about the relationship between people, their environment, their political environment, and their government. My conviction is this: the only way to have sustained good governance, justice, fairness, is if you have well-educated, healthy, employed, ethically developed, independent citizens. Absent strong citizens, having strong governance would be very much like going to a dirt field and hoping that maize will grow. Having planted no maize, when I have thought about citizenship in the past, I've always thought of it as paying taxes, voting, going to school, doing your job, somebody in an emergency. I've always thought of those things before. But now that I've been here with all of you, I will always think of you. Because what you're doing, you are seeking by your actions, by your words, to form a more perfect Borno, a better relationship between the people of the Northeast and each other, which is what government really is. And I cannot imagine anything more important for that little voice and for the future of this state than that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
She's our technician. She came from Kano.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Gosh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before reporting to his duty post in Abuja in November last year, he was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Central Africa and Africa Security Affairs. Previously, Ambassador Symington was United States Special Representative for Central African Republic, Ambassador to Rwanda, Ambassador to Djibouti, and Deputy Chief of Mission and Chargé d'Affaires and ad interim in Niger Republic. In Nigeria, he leads the outstanding staff of the U.S. Embassy in Abuja and the Consulate General in Lagos. Your Excellency, welcome to Dandal Kura Radio International.
It is a great honor to be here with you.
Thank you very much. This interview would be conducted by myself, Farouk Al-Hatu, and by Kachala Kolo, who is our head of programs.
Nice to see you, Kachala.
Your Excellency, you have been in Nigeria for just about 5 months now, and this is your first visit to Borno. You must have heard many things about Borno State, and now you must have caught a glimpse of how busy the city is.
Yep.
What's your impression?
So it's in vitality. And then I keep getting the same answer to this one question that I ask all over Nigeria. When I ask Nigerians, what do you love the most about your country? Every single Nigerian that I've spoken to, with one exception or two, says the same thing. They've said, I love the Nigerian people. And then I say, why? And they say, well, I love our diversity. I love the fact that we have so many different kinds of food and speak so many different languages. And coming here to this famous city, where for many years I understand people from all over the north and other parts of Nigeria who went east for education came here to this wonderful town, and driving down your good roads and looking at the work underway, I'm reminded that like Nigeria as a whole, Maiduguri is in the process of construction, and that like Nigeria as a whole, there are wonderful people here in Borno seeking to make it better.
Your Excellency, Harvard's intervention in the Northeast, and what is your assessment of its impact?
So you've asked him to say this.
Yeah.
First, the single most important message of the United States investment in Nigeria as a whole, but also in the Northeast, is this. We are absolutely convinced that every single Nigerian living in Borno and in the rest of the Northeast is vitally important not only to Nigeria, not only to the Lake Chad Basin, but to all of us. What that means is that we are not only doing here those things that are meant to respond to an immediate crisis, like hundreds of millions of dollars of support for people who have been driven by fear and by violence and by terror from their homes. But we're also thinking hard about how to help in areas such as education, health, the environment, because we're deeply convinced that the recovery, I've only spoken to a few people in Borno about their lives, but I'm reminded that each one here says things that I've heard all over Nigeria, which is, I would really love to have enough security so that I can return to those things that I love to do with the people that I love. And so I'd say that the most important portfolio, the most important part of our portfolio in this part of Nigeria is the same as it is in every other part. It's our connection with the people of this place. It cannot be measured in dollars. It's got to be measured one person and one life at a time. And we can always provide numbers, but what really matters is whether or not for all of those listeners that you have, not just here in Nigeria, but in the neighboring countries, if they could just, if they answered the question the way I've heard so many other Nigerians, that we love the Nigerian people, if they could just find a way together to return to that path that this country was on, confident that in the leader of this nation today, you have someone in the leadership. You have people who are deeply concerned for their welfare. I think
danger of famine in the northeast because of the sustained inability of farmers to go to their farms, and if something is not done urgently, it may lead to a serious catastrophe. What's your views on this, and if you can shed more light on the position of the U.S. government, please?
some of my friends went to attend this meeting and spoke there, and the United States will continue to be a major contributor. But I think that there are two elements to this. The first element is how to make sure that as many people as possible who need help now get that help over the next few months. The second element is how to get the security necessary homes and to take care of them as if they were part of their family, but also to find ways to help those in need. For this is both a Nigerian challenge and a global challenge. The second thing is to keep reaching out to all those people in the world to say, now is the time that Nigeria needs help, so that you don't have people that you've been helping, you have to stop helping because you run out of money. This is a very urgent challenge. I think it's a challenge first for Nigerians and second for everybody else. But I really think it's a challenge together. The second thing has to do with making it so there can be enough security, not just to sow your crop, but to harvest it, store it, and eat it or sell it. And that means that if, for all of those listening, if you really care about not only others, but yourself going forward, it's terribly important that everybody pull together to support those good people who seek to convince folks to stop doing and advocating violence and come together so that Nigeria can return to its course, and the Northeast as one of the most important breadbaskets, not only for Nigeria and West Africa, but for the world. This is not a place that any person should ever die of famine. And the only reason it is that bad people, for their own reasons, have so terrorized folks that they can't do the farming and the herding that's so important.
Well, thank you, sir. The change in Baton of the U.S. Embassy came at almost simultaneously with the change in leadership in the U.S. with the significant promise of shift in domestic and foreign policies. How will that shift affect Nigeria and, in fact, the Northeast?
You know, one of the remarkable things, I was lucky enough to arrive in Nigeria just the day before the election. But I want to tell you something that is a profound truth. I've shared this with people who I'm lucky enough to work with, both at our embassy and our consulate, but I want to share it with you. When I began working as a diplomat more than 30 years ago, we had three goals in the world. One was our security against threats from other nations and threats from criminal groups and groups that might use terror. The second was democracy. Not just the institutions of democracy, but the citizens who make democracy work. So as you think about that, critical. And then the last thing that we did was we focused on development. Not just development that comes in a project, but development that comes because you're making a product or a service that's valuable to somebody else so that you can sell it and make money and repeat. Those are the only kinds of projects that last forever. Having a service that you can sell. So we've been working on defense, on democracy, and development my whole career, and we will for all time.
Good.
And what's your take on the Nigerian government's effort on the war against insurgency so far?
You know, for me, I think the single most important thing is that the government connect with the people. And I've traveled now to all 6 regions of Nigeria and to a majority of your states, not all of them, in the 5.5 months that I've been lucky enough to be here with you. What I have found in every conversation is respect for and admiration for your president and for the overall intent of this government to do a few things that truly matter. One is to find ways to work with the poor so that they do not suffer. Another thing is to find ways to make sure that government governs so that the resources of the people are used for the purposes of the people. And then a third is to do what Borno does best and the Northeast does best, and that is to diversify the economy so that people in the future will depend less on oil and gas and more on the work of their own hand. I can't begin to speak for Nigerians, but I can say, from my perspective, there are a few combinations that make more sense to me than those 3 goals. And I see every day, and I meet every day with people across this country who are doing these things, who are working to achieve these goals. Now, I would add just one thing. None of these can be achieved unless the citizens support. There will be no security in any state, not the Northeast or anywhere else, unless the citizens support fully. And that means that everyone who's listening to this broadcast is personally as important for the future, for achieving those goals, as leaders in Abuja or Maiduguri or somewhere else. And it's when the people are connected to that project of Nigeria that real change can happen. I got the greatest lesson I have ever gotten in democracy from a Nigerian many years ago. I don't know whether this is true or not, but he said, Stuart, in our country, we depend on oil and gas revenue to run our services. And then he said, but we used to depend on farming and what we produced. And then he asked me this question. He said, what kind of a democracy can we have when the people depend on the government instead of the government depending on the people? I have thought of that ever since he said that. And I've used that thought around the world. It is a good thing to be home in Nigeria and hear that thought turning into policy, and that policy turning into action as agriculture is developed.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
As a seasoned diplomat and a conflict resolution expert, how did you view government's human rights track records?
I'll share with you in public what I have said in private. No one cares more about the people of Nigeria than Nigerians. Nigeria has good laws, and moreover, Nigeria has Nigerian values and ethics and culture and tradition. In Nigeria, when you do well, you will be recognized. When you make a mistake, you will be held accountable. But sometimes Nigerians are like we are, and when they hold themselves, they do what my father taught me to do. They reward in public, and then they punish in private, or they criticize in private. I'm very hopeful that in the coming time, the Nigerian people will continue to find opportunities to recognize those people in Nigeria who are risking their lives every day to keep them safe. Soldiers, police, civilian joint task force people, just civilians, ordinary civilians. Every day, all around your country, Nigerians like you are putting their lives on the line for your country. So the first thing I hope that I hear more of is recognition for them. Every one of them. The second thing I hope, just personally hope, is that when sometimes someone is held accountable, the Nigerian people can hear about it, and then I can hear about it. Because I would like to be able to tell that to people who don't know Nigeria the way I'm getting to know it. Thanks for the question.
And finally, what's your message for the people of the Chad-based region, Your Excellency?
It's very simple, and thank you for giving me a chance, Farouk, to share it. It is this. When I ask Nigerians what they love, they say, I love the Nigerian people. This is a nation of maybe 180 or more billion people. Every day, almost all of them are living together in peace. They're working together. They have friends. They've married. I'm convinced that when the Nigerian people, including the people of the Northeast, come together, when they celebrate their love for each other and demonstrate it by their actions with each other, this part of your country, your whole country, will fulfill the promise of Nigeria. And I urge everyone who's out there listening to think about how they can help to do that now, for themselves, their family, and for all of us. Because the United States has always stood with Nigeria, independent and strong. And we always will. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Stuart Symington, for having the time to be with us in Dandal Kura Radio studios, and we hope in the not too distant future you would have another chance to appear as our guest in our studios. Listeners, you have just finished listening to a very good interview with Ambassador Stuart Symington, U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, who is on a visit to Borno State, and in spite of his tight schedules, had time to stop by at our studios. Keep a date with us all the time. We would keep bringing you the goods all the time, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for...
Second.
Very great. I'm great.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you're with us. Thank you. Let me shake that hand.
I'm recording.
Thank you. Good to visit with you. Thanks again, sir.
You're welcome.
There?
Thank you.